Hello, bookish beauties! I was just tagged by Robin at Read All the Books in the Sisterhood of the World Vloggers Award. I am so excited about this tag. This one is unique in that I get to create my own questions for the people that I tag at the end. Robin has also come up with 10 questions. Number 1, how many books on your bookshelf have you not read? I knew this one was going to be high, and I actually went and counted, and it was worse than I thought, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it. Like 523! So in book hauls, when I say I shouldn't be buying books, that's why I keep buying them and acquiring them in other ways, and I don't think that's gonna stop anytime soon, so this is why I just keep buying more and more bookshelves. I can't believe it's actually over 500. And the worst part is that's only half of my TBR. Okay, second question's a little bit easier to answer. Other than YA, what is your favorite genre to read? I read more fantasy than anything else. Usually it's urban or like modern contemporary fantasy, and while that is what most of YA is, even outside of YA, that's what I gravitate toward the most. I do try to read widely. If you've ever really taken a look at the titles behind me, you can see that there's a pretty crazy variety. You go from cozy mystery to children's fantasy, women's fiction, Christian fiction, crazy, I don't know what. Chuck Palahniuk's just bizarre. Thriller, horror, literary fiction, and a bunch of these are contemporary, and that's just one little section. I'm really kind of all over the place, but it seems like the books that I'm picking out for myself, the ones that really grab my attention the most, are the ones that have some element of fantasy, or even just some kind of weirdness to them. A lot of Stephen King's books even aren't necessarily horror, they're just weird. Like Duma McKee and Lacey's Story, which are my two favorite Stephen King books, I wouldn't even really call them horror. There is some element of suspense, and there is some death and gore kind of stuff that happens, but the majority of the story isn't really about that most times, I think. So anyway, I usually just go with fantasy. Obviously there's some sci-fi mixed in there, there's some high fantasy, there's some urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy, historical fantasy. Usually anything that's just strange is my favorite type of thing. 3, who is your favorite all-time character and why? I think I've mentioned her before, but I just love her so much. Sarah Crew from A Little Princess. This is a girl who has nothing but hardship thrown at her. Through it all, she stays positive, kind, imaginative. Even on the picture it says, she seldom cried. She did not cry now. And this is during a part of the book where really things couldn't get much worse. Sarah knows who she is, and she stays who she is regardless of her circumstances, which is always something that I strive for. On top of that, who she is an incredible person who is kind, caring, loving, generous, happy, positive. She's just amazing. If I lived in her world, I'd want to be her best friend, and if I could be any character, I would be her. I try to be like her. 4, what made you want to start a BookTube channel and why? Back in the days of my childhood, my brother and I had a cat, a video camera, and a lot of time on our hands. One of our favorite things to do was make videos. We did everything from choreographing dances to our favorite songs to building cages and contraptions for our cat out of K'NEX to just being silly and dancing around and having fun with our friends. If YouTube had been a thing back when we were kids, I probably would have had a channel when I was like 10. So it's something I've always been interested in. I didn't really do much with it throughout my life. I just kind of here and there made a video. But once I really started watching a lot of YouTube, and BookTube specifically, being that I'm a writer and there's the whole platform building thing, but more importantly, I just love to talk about books. And I love to hear all of you talk about books. It's a really great community. I love being a part of it. And it was pretty much a no-brainer. I think I'd watched maybe a couple of booktubers before I was like, wait a minute, why am I not doing this And so I started. I did make a couple of videos that weren't exclusively BookTube videos. Then I narrowed my focus to make it more about books specifically. Every once in a while I'll still do a nail art or some other kind of more random video, but it's pretty much just books. And that's what I love talking about the most. So, number 5, what is your day job? I work at my church as a web designer, which means that I design, create, and maintain all of the websites that we have. I also sort of oversee and help another one of my coworkers do social media. We kind of tackle it together as a team. Also do some stuff with HTML emails, and occasionally I get to write some kind of a series description and use my writing skills to do a tiny bit of graphic designing with that, but it's mostly all about the websites. That is my full-time job. Outside of that, I do some freelancing, which includes anything from graphic design to book editing and design to websites, and even on occasion I make some crafts and put them on my Etsy store, which is sadly lacking much of anything right now. It's been poorly neglected, and I've actually got 5 or 6 half-finished projects sitting around me I just need to do and put up there. And most importantly, when I'm not doing videos or working or any of the freelance stuff, I am a writer. I've had 5 short stories published already. Actually, I have another one coming out in the fall, so that would make 6. I've written like 5 novels so far. They're in various stages of editing and trying to get an agent and all of that fun stuff. So eventually something will happen with that. 6. How have your reading habits changed since starting BookTube? Well, I know that Robin mentioned something about this in her video, how she reads a lot more because she feels like she needs to catch up, and that's definitely a thing. I've been reading a lot more recent books. In the past, my attitude was sort of like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I wasn't really that concerned with the new releases and the next thing coming out. There weren't a lot of books that I really waited for, and I think that was just because I already had, like, over 500 books sitting around waiting to be read. But I figure even if I ran out and bought a book the day it came out, I probably wouldn't get to it for a few months, so why rush? But now that there's BookTube and I want to talk about all these books and I hear people talk about them all the time and I don't want to get spoiled, I definitely have started reading a lot more new books. Another thing is that my TBR is even more out of control than it used to be because every time I watch a video, I end up adding at least a book because something sounds so amazing. But the good thing is I have also just been reading more. Seems like. I am so far ahead of my Goodreads challenge, I can't even believe it. I think I'm like 7 books ahead right now, which I don't think has ever happened on a challenge, and this is maybe the 4th year that I've done the Goodreads challenge. The one where you can just put in how many books you want to read for the year. I put in 75 for this year, which is what I read last year, and it was really close. I barely made 75. So far this year, I've already read, I think, 25 or 26, and I'm like 7 books ahead, so that's amazing. And if I keep that up, then I'm gonna hit over 80 this year, which is cool. 7. What book world would you want to live in? My initial thought on this one was Hogwarts, just because the school is amazing, and really the whole Harry Potter world is really fun. I mean, obviously, let me just clarify, I would want to live there as a wizard because being a muggle is pretty much just like living in our world, except weird stuff happens without explanation. Oh, wait. That does happen. But who wouldn't want to live in the Harry Potter world? But the Harry Potter world is super fun. I mean, come on, they have flying cars. And magic and owl mail. But I am about 2/3 of the way through Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and let me just say, I can already feel myself becoming a little bit obsessed with that book. This world is incredible, and it's so imaginative, and I am loving Karoo, and Akiva is just like, I love them all, they're amazing. So, I don't know, her world I think would be kind of fun if I could be Karoo with the whole wishes and there's angels and magical stuff that happens. It's kind of cool. Though she lives in a world that's somewhat normal, her world is not. So if I could specifically be her, I would live in her world. 8. What book world would you never want to live in? That one's pretty simple. Fahrenheit 451. Who wants to live in a world where there's no books? Any of the other horrible dystopians are bad enough, but at least they had books. They could read and have some small level of escapism. Though I guess they couldn't really read in The Handmaid's Tale either. That would be a pretty horrible world too. Fahrenheit 451, not only did they not have books and it was illegal to read, but they burned any books that they found. So they were like destroying books all the time. 9. Whoops. 9. What is your favorite historical fiction book? I don't read a ton of historical fiction, but there is one that is very near and dear to my heart, and that would be Outlander, because Jamie and Claire and Scotland and so many accents and Highlanders and fun and adventure and Jamie. Did I mention Jamie? And the show starting again. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the rest of season 1. Outlander is very quickly becoming one of my most favorite series. I've only read 4 of them so far. They are really long books, so I try to kind of spread them out. Plus, I kind of don't want to get to the end and finish the series, even though we have been told there's at least one more book coming. I don't know when that's coming, and I don't want to be in this awful waiting state that happens so often. I'm in with a ton of other books. I just like knowing that there are 4 more books waiting for me, and that all I have to do is pick them up if I want more Jamie and Claire and Jamie. And 10. Have any booktubers influenced you or made an impact on you? Well, yes, there are quite a few. I have to say that there was a point in my life, and this only changed a few years ago, where I didn't really get that YouTube was a thing that people did regularly as far as vlogging goes. I had kind of heard that term and didn't really pay much attention to it. I was more into blogging and Twitter and Facebook and worrying about that whole world. And I'd go to YouTube. I mean, I watched videos all the time, but it was more of a one-off thing. It'd be like, if I needed to fix my computer, I would watch a video on how to replace a part, or some funny, goofy, viral thing that was going around Facebook, or a movie trailer, or something like that. I would go there with a specific purpose in mind. I didn't really go there just to watch videos and see what was available. That started really changing. Well, I think it actually started changing when I had my nail blog. Before I started my writing and book blog, and before I started getting on YouTube, I had a nail art blog. And I would go to YouTube a lot to watch techniques and tutorials on how to do things, and I started realizing that there were certain nail bloggers that would do videos all the time. But I think I really realized that YouTube was a thing that people like did as a hobby, or even for a living, was John and Hank Green. They're one of the original YouTubers from 2007. I think they were actually the first channel ever to be monetized, and their videos are still really great. I watch them all the time. Once I started watching Vlogbrothers videos and getting more into that world, there was things like the Project for Awesome, where they would introduce all these other vloggers out there, and I'd watch videos for that and go check them out. So through that, I discovered Christina Horner and Ariel Bissett, which were actually the first booktubers that I started watching. Wheezy Waiter, which I think he's gotta be one of my absolute favorites. He might be, I don't know, number 1 or number 2, right there with the Vlogbrothers. It's hard to say, but he is hilarious. I've had people tell me that my videos are funny, but he is absolutely a riot, and he just does things with the camera and with editing that I could only dream of pulling off. I don't even know how he does some of these things, but he's awesome. You should definitely check him out. I actually just recently recorded my Wink video, so I'm gonna have to upload that soon. And the other one that I watch regularly that has sort of inspired me to try out some different things is Bunny. She has built a really great fan base that she calls the Swamp Family. And she does a wide variety of videos. Some of her most popular ones are the as seen on TV products that she gets and tries it, and it's a segment that she calls, Does This Thing Really Work? And it's awesome to watch her because she usually skips over the directions or just does it in a way that's so funny, and she's just really cool and fun, and I really like watching her. Okay, now I get to tag 10 women and ask 10 questions. I tag Sarah Ella, Aussie Bookworm, Between Chapters, Danny the Insatiable Bookie, Bookworm's Buddy, The Crafty Home, The Book Hangover, Readers and Daydreams, Demigods Are Dauntless, and It's Clumsy Becky. The questions that you guys will be answering are, how long have you been booktubing, and in that time, what has surprised you and or what have you learned? What do you wish you had more time to do? And I'm gonna add, besides reading, because I think most of us wish we had more time to read, so don't use that. What do you wish you were better at? Are you a writer? And if so, what do you write or have you written? What is your favorite hobby besides reading and booktubing? If you were single, what character would you date? And I'm gonna add a special note on this one. Sarah Ella, you're not allowed to say Warner because you say him for everything. Who else? Pick somebody else. With question number 6, would you live in their world or would you bring them to yours? What book have you read more times than any other book? If you could force everyone in the world to read one book, what would it be and why? What literary character are you most similar to? Good, bad, or ugly? Who is most like you? And that's it! Thank you, Robin, again for tagging me. This was a super fun tag, and I can't wait to hear all of your answers. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe!